Thanks for joining us. Now, Parliament reconvenes today for the first meeting of the second session. The House resumes after two emergency recalls truncated their holiday break. The first recall had to be done when a motion by the minority for the House to investigate the cash for seats allegation was moved. And the second was when they had to gather to swear in the Speaker of Parliament, Reverend Professor Aaron Michael Quay, as acting President in the absence of Presidents Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. We'll be going into the number of bills that will be tabled for consideration. And joining is standing by in Parliament right now with Ras Mubarak, Member of Parliament for Kumbungu. Joseph will be coming to you shortly. I have with me in the studio Fred Smith, taking us through what's to expect from the House. Fred.
Good morning. What the as 55 bills will be considered in the first meeting. The Legal Profession Amendment Bill 18, Bill Bill 2018, and some others. Well, bills that are already at the consideration stage, at the committee stage, and they will also be considered during this meeting. They are the Legal Aid Communion Bill of 2017, which defines the Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. The Taxation, that's the Use of Fiscal Electronic Device Bill 2017, and is currently with the Finance Committee. And the Standards for Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Bill 2017. It's also with the Finance Committee. In all, about 25 instruments are expected for presentation, and they are the Heritage Sites Instruments, 2018 Receptive Centuries Instruments, the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority Amendment Regulations of 2018, the Legal Profession, Professional Conduct and Etiquette Amendment Regulation 2018.
Seems like a very busy Parliament this sitting.
Very busy Parliament as if returned from the Christmas break.
So the Legal Profession Bill, that's the one that was under contention a few months ago.
Exactly. It has to do with the requirements before you enter into law school and the rest. And even some of the MPs we've heard were not happy about the procedures, having to write some examinations and all that. They're looking at fine-tuning it so that they can't kill the controversy that's in the system.
And another one is the cash for seats allegation. The ad hoc committee will be presenting their reports.
That report will also be presented. In fact, there are other things also happening. Approximately 41 papers will be presented to the House, and there will also be motions for debate on the floor of the House. And so far, 7 motions have been tabled for debate. A total of 17 directives from the Speaker are before various committees of the House, and the Committee on Roads and Transport is working on the enforcement of the road traffic legislation by the authorities concerned to promote road safety. And you recall that the National Road Safety Commission has set in motion a review of the road safety regulations. So one of the things we want to do is to consider if they have to accommodate the use of Okada. At the moment, it's banned. We want to consider the use of it. And you remember the towing levy, it's part of that. It has to be looked at again. So all of those controversial and unpopular provisions in those clauses, in that legislation will be dealt with by this particular Parliament.
Thank you very much, Fred Smith, and we'll be here to bring you all the latest on what happens in Parliament in this particular sitting. But let's cross over to the House now, where Joseph Opoku Gakpo will bring us up to speed on happenings at the moment. Joseph, I understand you have Ras Mubarak, Member of Parliament for Kumbungu, with you.
Not just him, I have a number of other members of Parliament as well around. The sitting was expected to have commenced at 10 a.m., but the MPs are still coming in. Only a few of them have actually gotten into the chamber already. We're expecting that the rest will come in soon. A while ago, I saw First Deputy Speaker Joseph Oseiwusu as well walk into the chamber. We'll see. But beyond the items that Fred listed a while ago as the key issues that are officially on the table that we look forward to the House dealing with once the session begins, well, there are a number of others. We are, for example, expecting that the President would officially communicate to Parliament the appointment of Martin Amidu as Special Prosecutor, and then we would see a vetting process go on, and then the official approval by Parliament will then take place. We're also expecting that you'd recall the cash for seat scandal, as it's come to be called. Well, one of the things we've gathered this morning is that the committee, the Kwesi Ameya-led committee, is meeting as we speak, and they'll be coming to a decision on a number of things, and then we're actually expecting the report of that committee tomorrow per the timelines that they were given by the Speaker. We don't know if that report is ready, but obviously we would know before close of day. But let me interrogate a few of the issues. Kumbungu MP Ras Mubarak is joining us, and so obviously, the vetting of Martin Amidu will be topical during this session, wouldn't it? What else do you think will be the key issues that we would have to deal with?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of interests that has come with the appointment of, with the nomination of Martin Amidu, and Ghanaians are very, very expectant and hoping to see how the vetting process goes on. At the public accounts level, we are expected to present a report to Parliament about the work done thus far. And one of the key things that I would want to see is the provision of clarity in the powers of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament. For instance, some have argued that we don't have the powers to arrest people or order for the arrest of people who are appearing before the committee as witnesses. I would want to stimulate some debate on this, because in the fight against corruption, there's got to be a number of things. Yes, appointment of special prosecutor is one, but that would not be enough deterrent. We have the death penalty in our status book for persons who commit murder, yet people still go about committing murder. So there are a lot of building blocks that we would have to put in place in ensuring that we fight corruption in this country.
The catch for seat scandal, you're expecting the report, well, the deadline is actually tomorrow. What are your own expectations?
To be honest with you, I'm a bit disappointed with the President's prejudicial comments on the cash for seats scandal, so I do not expect anything other than what the President had said already, because basically what his comments did to the committee is to bog it down and basically tie their hands. Don't forget, they have a majority on the committee, right? And once the President says there's nothing wrong, you would ordinarily not expect members of his own party to go contrary to things that he has said.
The President said that, but that didn't stop the setting up of a committee to probe this. He is leading the executive arm. This is a parliamentary probe. You're the minority, you've got representatives on that. You don't trust their integrity enough that they would end up coming up with a report which would have been a thoroughly done job?
I can assure you that the majority members on the committee would espouse their positions as forcefully as possible. But obviously at committee levels, such as that, when it comes to votes, clearly they have the numbers on the committee, and it will be the opinion of the majority of the members on the committee that would hold sway.
So you don't expect that anything fruitful will come out of that particular sitting? Then why did the minority push for it in the first place?
I would be exceedingly glad if they could defy, the President's prejudicial comments and actually come up with a report that meets the expectations of the Ghanaian public. But unfortunately, I doubt whether that would be the case. Don't forget the separation of powers, and I'm of the view that the President should have stopped at making prejudicial judgments or comments when the issue came up during the Meet the Press session. But unfortunately, that wasn't to be. So disappointing as it is, I doubt whether there would be anything monumental or earth-shaking changes as far as the committee's work is concerned.
We look forward to the publishing of that report and what the feedback would be. Many thanks for joining us. Ras Mubarak is the MP for the Kumbungu constituency. Well, we are expecting that report tomorrow. One thing that we are not sure of is whether they would go ahead and put out the report or they would ask for an extension of time, because you'd recall that they were supposed to have met the expatriate business community sometime last 2 weeks. They couldn't meet them because they didn't show up. But then we wait to see how that goes. But another member of parliament is joining us, the MP for for the Adaklo constituency, Kwame Agboja. Honorable, thanks very much for joining us. One of the key things that we gather from the details that have been communicated to us is that the enforcement of road regulations per the act that had been passed by Parliament, which had become controversial, we'll be looking at it keenly during this particular sitting. What can you all expect?
Well, I'm aware that the LI has been brought back to Parliament. Basically, the Ghanaians were unhappy with a section which has got to do with road towing. I'm told the new review is to make it not mandatory, but optional. Optional in the sense that you can go and buy your own recovery service from a service provider. It will still be an offence if you leave your car by the roadside. All those things will still apply. The only thing is the collection of the fees will now be based between you and the service provider. And I think that is what Ghanaians would pursue. That.
And when can we expect that this LI would be laid?
Well, leadership would table whatever they think is government priority and bring it. As soon as that is being brought to the attention of my committee, I'm sure the committee will work on it. But further to that, my committee and a lot of Ghanaians have been worried about the state of the road network in this country, especially the Cocoa Road. You know that it's about a year now since Cocoa Board said they were reviewing those contracts. We are expecting, we've asked questions, as you are aware, I've asked questions on this floor. As I speak to you, I have a pending question on the same issue. We are expecting government to be forthcoming and to bring that review process to a conclusion. The road ministry itself have reviewed over 2,000 contracts and are finished and are going ahead. Cocoa Board is unable to review 200 contracts, and I think Ghanaians are getting to a point where we can't take, we are working on it anymore. We expect government to come forward with that report, and let's see what's in it.
Are there any specific parliamentary processes that you want to use to get government, and for that matter, Cocoa Board, to do as you are demanding?
Look, you will notice that Cocoa Board, even there's a bit of a dilemma. Cocoa Board is under Ministry of Agric currently, but all the roads in this country are the Ministry of Road and Highways. So sometimes you file a question against Ministry of Road and Highway, they tell you, well, it's about Cocoa Board, and Cocoa Board is under Ministry of Agric. But the questions we filed are on the Ministry of Road and Highway, simply because we believe it's a road issue. And indeed, the consultants working on the road are all from the agencies under Ministry of Road and Highways.
Just to move away from that, the final thing, and so we will be having the acting president of the Republic sitting in the chair as head of the House as we go into the sitting today. What have you gathered? Would we see him be the one to run affairs?
Well, I'm not sure whether Right Honourable Mike Okwe would be the one sitting specifically. Maybe it will be the first Deputy Speaker. But you know the comments we've made already. Some of us believe the whole process that brought us back on Sunday was completely unnecessary. I still don't believe the oath he took actually can make him act, because President Akufo-Addo was in Liberia in the capacity of the President of Ghana. He is not giving any indication of his inability to act or to perform his role. The oath that the Speaker took was never the oath in the Constitution. So I'm not sure the effectiveness of that. But we can leave that, because, to be honest, it's not the first time that oath has been applied. You remember, that's why Honorable Duajaho refused to take that oath at a point in time. But we can move on, but there's a lot of lessons for us to learn as to whether we don't have to go and clean up Act 60 properly to make it effective.
As MPs, you are the lawmakers. Are you ready to trigger the process? The last time the issue came up, there was a lot of talk, and then everyone went to bed. And on Sunday, again, there's been a lot of talk. Are you ready to push through to trigger the processes to get those alterations done?
Yes, I think the current Speaker has always been signaling his determination to see how Parliament can also institute or start certain things. So you notice that significant things that came to the floor, he directed that the agencies or the ministry should come back and report to Parliament. I am sure there could be a backdoor where we can probably trigger something in Parliament that would compel executives to come forward with something. You notice that it's very difficult for private members or Parliament to institute a significant review of our laws because of the way the Constitution has been built. But I think whilst we move on, we should be able to find a way that makes it comfortable for Parliament to be initiators of some of these reviews, because they are critical. Our inability to tweak this can actually land this country in chaos eventually. And I think we have the time now to correct that before we get to that deadlock.
We'll see how that goes. Many thanks for joining us, the MP for Adaklu, Kwame Agboja, with those comments there. And so we are waiting for the sitting to begin any moment from now. Two other things that are likely to be topical, even as we go into this particular session between now and when the House goes on recess sometime in April, will be the reports of the Committee on Energy on the Ameri deal, the $550 million Ameri deal. You would recall that there was a motion to get that contract disapproved, if I could put it so. Well, we are waiting for the report on that. That's expected in the next few days. And we're also expecting a legislative instrument from the National Identification Authority on the registration processes that would allow for Ghanaians to be captured onto a single database, an LI that would allow for a modification of the kind of data that can be taken, which would allow for your email address and other details that were not captured in the previous law to be taken. Is also expected on the floor of Parliament between now and March. We look forward to see how that would go. Daniel.
Couple of weeks coming, or months I should say, coming as Parliament enters its second session.